All right, so today's video, I have Nick Gebhardt from Zero Compromise. We're going to go over their entire product line and answer all your questions. Let's go. Hey folks, Gary here with Paramount Tactical Solutions, and as many of you know, we've done some videos on Zero Compromise. We're a Zero Compromise dealer. We're a user of Zero Compromise. I'm a huge fan. We get a lot of questions from different clients, potential customers, and even you viewers about the different accessories, the different product lines, the differences, the pros and cons, which to buy for which rifle, shooting sport, all of those things. And one of the biggest questions that we get asked that I'm going to address right up front is durability and warranty. So we got Nick Gebhardt. Nick, if you will, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do for Zero Compromise, and then we'll talk a little bit about the history of the company and kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. So Nick Gebhardt, been part of Zero Compromise Optics since it was just an idea that we should start a brand new company.
Awesome.
So foot in the door at the very ground level of everything. Kind of come from more of a competitive shooter background, doing a lot of PRS competitions, some sniper matches. I've been shooting those types of matches since about 2004, I think was the first match that I went to.
Okay.
I play a lot of key roles in the company, a lot of it behind the scenes, background kind of work, but right now, my primary job is dealer sales, getting new dealers on board, working with current dealers, getting orders processed, and getting those up to the production crew. Make sure that dealers are getting the products that they need for their customers.
Awesome.
I also have a big role in working with designing new reticles that we have for products coming out, researching designs, listening to what customers are talking about on some of the online forums, feedback that I get from competitors as we're out actually shooting matches, and then taking that information and feeding that up to the higher chain so that we can start working on new reticle options that are going to keep our products at the leading edge of the industry.
Yeah, so I just want to step in there. One thing that I found interesting, so Nick came out down here for the weekend. We went and shot a match together, been hanging out with him all week. And every time I looked at him over, he was on his phone, like, what are you doing? And he was literally going through, different shooter forums, answering questions on the go. So, I thought that was impressive to me. You could have been focusing on kind of taking it easy, us just preparing for the match, but you were worried about the customers 24/7. And I thought that was an interesting insight to what you do and the level of attention to clients, customers. You're in there, you were talking with them, and I thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's talk about the evolution from where you guys started to where you are with Zero Compromise.
Where we started was a group, a very tight, small group of individuals that had particular skill sets in precision rifle scope, design, development, use, right? So one of the key guys, and I don't think that our company would be here without him, is Jeff Huber. Okay. He's story background in precision rifle scope industry. He had some ambitions to just go ahead and start a brand new company when the timing was right, and happened to know a mechanical designer that happened to be available. Also had worked in other high-end rifle scope companies. Yeah. And then we also had a couple other people that were helping out with the project, get this thing up and going. So yeah, kind of put together a team and decided, hey, we're going to start out and go for the top spot in the industry. We didn't want to just say, well, let's go to an OEM manufacturer and put our label on something that's already being mass produced. No, we wanted to take this to a whole nother level. And so with the background and the technical knowledge of everybody involved, yeah, they knew how to build the scopes, and then they also went to the extra lengths of, since they're starting fresh, yeah, what do these competitors need? What will make our products better than anything else at the time? So looking at how everything fit inside of the scope, how can we make things just a little bit better, a little bit more durable, more precise, repeatable, every aspect that you need in a tactical type rifle scope. And so they did that, put their heads together and started working on some new designs. And yeah, our entire goal was to be the top rifle scope in the industry, or this type of optic.
That's again, having the chance to spend some time with you, talking about, without naming either individuals or company names. I thought it was really cool to hear, these are people that were folks, whatever the top level scopes are out there, those are the people that broke away from those particular companies. And number one, want to bring the lessons learned, both good and bad, to a completely redesigned optic. And some of that stuff is what most customers don't know. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview, this discussion with you, is let people see some of the faces behind the company, understand where you guys are coming from. And I just think that is really important and really helps customers to get behind a company or to trust a company, to invest in buying their products and feeling good about it and making sure that they're getting what they pay for.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the other part of what I do is go to competitions, talk to the shooters. I can't tell you how many matches I've gone to and somebody has heard about our company and they've read about it, but they haven't seen one.
Right.
So please, here, get down on my gun, get down on my scope, twist the turrets. You go through it. I'll answer any questions that you got. Take a look at it. And most people are very impressed with the optic and they like the feel of everything. And me being there, being able to answer their questions on the spot, let them look at the optic, I think it's critical in this industry to get people out there doing that.
I agree. The other thing that I get asked a lot about is durability and warranty. That's the first question I field. Sure. And Zero Compromise is a fairly new company. You've been around about 6 years. Honestly, the first time I heard about you, being in the industry as much as I am, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, probably about 3 years ago. Sure. So, let's talk a little bit about the durability testing that you guys do, and then we'll go directly and answer warranty questions right up front.
Yeah, sure. So the durability testing that we do is on the extreme sides of things. There's other companies do whatever they do for testing. I don't know what that is, but how we test our optics, one of the key things that we look for is reticle shift upon impact of the scope. So once they get the scope built and everything put together, there's a whole battery of tests that scope undergoes. It takes forward impact, so literally taking the scope and smashing it down on the objective end of the scope. And then it goes back into a machine, and you can tell the slightest deviation of that reticle in there. That gets done multiple times just on that aspect. And then it's a side impact. It might be on the left side multiple times, and you're looking for any reticle deviation. And then on the right side. So it gets literally beaten on, but it's a thick rubber mat. We're checking to make sure that nothing inside is shifting, and it's just a microscopic shift is going to lead to a reticle deviation, which then is going to be a point of aim, point of impact deviation downrange.
Sure.
Right. The scopes also go through a exhaustive tracking test for vertical, horizontal, make sure the click value is true, the travel is true. We check parallax on it. We set the parallax, and the parallax is set at like a 70 degrees. So ambient air temperature 70 degrees, the scope is 70 degrees, everything internal is 70 degrees. We make sure that is the specification where that parallax numbering is set. Yeah. So if you're out shooting a competition and it's 90 degrees, your parallax, the number that's on there is going to be close, but it's not going to be right. If you're shooting in much colder conditions, it's going to be different. But that is meant as a quick reference guide for where the parallax is going to be close.
And folks, that's true and that's one thing that most people don't understand is parallax is subject to the ambient air temperature and the conditions. And that's why there's always going to be a slight deviation unless you're in those exact conditions of what that parallax set. And that's true with any optic company. And most people don't understand that. And quite frankly, I don't understand the wizardry behind it. I'm not an optical engineer, and I know you're not either. But it's just one of those things that people think in all conditions. This is just a optical equation, and it's more than that, quite frankly.
Yep. So going back to durability, we have gone through pretty much every aspect of how these scopes get put together. Where do we need thread locker? How do we mount the optical lenses inside of the scope? In fact, so a lot of the lenses and optics that are in there, they're not just a mechanical lock, but they also get bonded with like a high temp UV type of a glue, right? So they're bedded into position as well as a mechanical lock. So they're built to a whole nother level to make sure these things are as durable or more so than any other scope that's out there.
Nice. I don't care what brand you're dealing with. There's things that can happen, whether it's an accident, whether it's just a defect in materials, whatever happens. Things happen.
Yep.
And most importantly, how the company responds to it, I think, is really what is most important. So let's talk about your warranty. You guys have a lifetime warranty. What does that mean? Because that means a lot of different things in this industry.
Right. So lifetime warranty on craftsmanship, workmanship, materials, all that. And I should double check. I believe there's a 2-year limited lifetime on the electronics, but that's due to more of a technicality we're actually a European-owned company, and that's where the headquarters and everything is at, and so that needs to be spelled out in the literature. But I'll tell you, just from practice, from being here, what we want to do is take care of the rifle scope, whether you're the first owner or the 5th owner of that rifle scope. We're warranting the product, not the owner of the product. So we cover pretty much everything except for intentional misuse or abuse of the optic, or like catastrophic events. So if unfortunately somebody's house burns to the ground, very sorry, we're not going to cover all your scopes that are there. But if you're out in the field and something happens to your scope, you have some sort of a failure of the optic, whatever it happens to be, just get a hold of us. We're going to take care of the customer as best as we can. We try to do that to, one, provide good customer service, but to show everybody that we do stand behind our products, number one. So.
And I can tell you from experience, we've had one client that had one minor issue. He came to us. Number one, you don't have to go to your dealer. Call Zero Compromise. I believe they have a 1-800 number or email. How do they normally do that, customer service?
For here in the United States, just send us an email, sales@zcompoptic.com. That's the easiest way to get you right in touch with the customer service.
And I can tell you, number one, they were extremely responsive. They gave him, it was quick and easy. They had like either an overnight or a 2-day shipping label. He had that optic back within a week, was completely happy. He called me, let me know what was going on, and great experience overall. So, if you have any questions, give them a call. It's been my experience and other minor issues that they've had in the past that I've known about and have heard about. They've taken care of people every single time. So they're going to stand behind the products. And that's one of the things that was really important to us. If we're going to be a dealer for a company, it's just not a matter of, looking at, the margins that we're going to make. We want to make sure that the product is good, the company has a good reputation, and they're going to take care of their customers. And just like with anything, when it comes to what we sell, we've actually had companies that started off really great, and then we started to run into issues. We monitored that, and then we stopped, being a dealer for that company. So we want you to be able to trust us. And so far, our experience with Zero Compromise has been awesome. And I think you're investing in a good company, and you're getting a product that they're going to stand behind if something does fail, but they're going to do everything they can to make that product so it doesn't fail to begin with. And that's really what it's all about.
Right, absolutely.
If you have additional questions that we don't cover in this video, make sure you leave those down in the comments, and we'll make sure to address that. And while we're talking about that, if you like content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, throw a comment down below. Also check out our other social media sites. We do a lot of cool things on there. And also our newsletter link. It's a free newsletter. We don't spam you. We don't sell your contact information. Go check that out, and we'll make it worth your time as well. So let's talk about some of the different models that you have. We'll talk about some of the different options on each model, and then we'll also talk about some of the accessories as well. So you can start wherever you'd like on that.
Well, cool. Well, let's just kind of start down the line, what we got going on here.
Sounds good.
So first up is our ZC420. So this is a 4-20 magnification range, has a 50 millimeter objective. All of our scopes have a 36 millimeter main tube. So when we first came out of the gate in 2018 with our scope line, and we told people we had a 36 millimeter main tube, one of the very first questions was, does anybody even make rings for that?
Right.
And we already had that covered. In fact, American Rifle Company, right out of the gate, they're awesome to work with, had 36 millimeter rings and everything. Masterpiece Arms had 36 millimeter mounts. There are a couple other companies. We were not the first to use a 36 millimeter main tube at all. So anyway, the 4-20, what's really nice about this scope is how compact it is. The length is a 12.8 inches overall length. The weight, 36.5 ounces. You got 35 mils of elevation adjustment on here and 20 mils of windage.
Yep.
So the 35 mils of elevation travel is actually quite large. It comes out to like 120 minutes of angle and MOA. We do have a rotation indicator on here. It's just a little pop-up button on the top of the elevation turret. So when you come around to the first revolution, that comes up so it'll let you know that you're on the next set of numbers up there. So 15 mil turrets were our original design with a locking feature. Lift up to unlock, make your adjustment, and then you can lock it down anywhere in the adjustment travel. For this year, though, moving forward, the 4 to 20 now is only going to have the 10 mil per turn elevation turret. So you can get that as either a locking or a non-locking. So the non-locking, we refer to that as the NLE, non-locking elevation, and that will be available in the 527 and the 8 to 40 as well, the non-locking elevation or locking turrets in the 10 mil. The parallax adjustment on this comes down fairly close. You're at like 25 meters, right? So that's pretty close. Everybody was very happy with that.
Yeah. A lot of the parallax options are like usually 75, 100 yards. So to have a 25 meter or they're about 27 yard ability to adjust parallax, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, and our scopes will usually do a little bit closer than that. There's a little bit extra that we can get closer, but we mark it for 25. And again, depending on atmospheric conditions, all that kind of stuff. The other really cool thing that we have is our illumination management system, and that's co-located here with the Parallax turret wheel, whatever. What's really cool about this is it has some really awesome functions. Number one is the end user can select whether they want a red illuminated reticle or a green illuminated reticle.
Really cool.
I don't use night vision equipment, but those that do, they might prefer the red or the green, depending on what they're using, or even just for their own eye when they're shooting dawn dusk kind of time frame. It's nice to have that.
By the way, I did a full review and comparison of the zero compromise. A little more in depth on some of these different options where I've actually pulled that out, show you how to adjust those things. So I'll put that video right up there. You can go check that out. But I really like, it's by far the best illumination on these reticles that I've seen of any scope option out there. I mean, it's the entire reticle on most of the reticles. On most of the reticle options, outside of the trimmer, the entire reticle is illuminated. It's evenly illuminated, and it's extremely bright. There are some times when it's really bright, it may not be daylight bright, but as soon as you get that optic over into the shadows, you will see the illumination on that, even in the brightest daylight. So I've been very impressed with how good the illumination is on these optics. All right, so I wanted to jump in here real quick and give you some context of which this illumination illustration is being shot. Number one, we're in full daylight. All right, not a cloud in the sky. It's about 3:40 p.m. And I was just monitoring the image through my phone, the app for this device. Understand there's a lot of limitations with this. I could tell as I'm viewing that image that it's recording, it was hard to tell what the conditions were. So I want to make sure I'm not giving this some sort of unfair advantage. A couple of key points. The red illumination, it is very bright, and even in well-lit areas, you can still see that illumination. And of course, as you move over into darker areas, it is very clear. That illumination is daylight bright in the shadows and everything else. And actually is daylight bright in probably all but the brightest conditions possible. So, that red illumination, when you are shooting targets that are well lit, and now I got to go look for targets over in the wood line or in areas where shadows, where a lot of times your reticle would just wash out, or you won't be able to see good fidelity of that reticle, that illumination just works really well. The green is not as bright. The green is not gonna work as well in those daylight areas, but it's easy to switch over from one or the other. But you can still see that green in lower light conditions. It works really well. So like I said, I wanted to provide some context in here. I'm telling you right now, out of everything I've tested, the zero compromise illumination system for the reticle is by far the best that I've come across. It gives you the fidelity that you need to use every 1/10 of mil hold off that's available to you in this reticle, and or MOA, your choice. Anyways, I'll let you get back, go enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, the illumination was not meant to be using these as a red dot type optic in a patrol rifle. But so other functions with the illumination, it has some advanced features to help save your battery life. We call that AIM, Advanced Illumination Management. So when you're optic rifle exceeds a certain degree of roll, so say that you're using your illumination, you forget to turn it off, you lay your rifle on the side, it's automatically going to detect that the rifle is outside of a normal shooting position. It's going to turn off the illumination. If you stand it right back up within a certain amount of time, it's going to come right back on for you. Also, if you exceed a certain degree of up or down angle, it'll also turn that off. So say that you sling your rifle, you're going to move to a different position, it'll turn that illumination off to help save that battery life. So in there are certain sensors. So even if your illumination is on and it hasn't gone like within like a 2-hour time frame, just the slightest vibration like this, it can actually detect and it'll keep that illumination on. So after, say for a military operation, you might be in an overwatch position, the rifle is on a tripod, you're not on the gun specifically, but you're observing, watching for anything, but you need your rifle to be ready, right? After 2 minutes of a time frame, it's going to turn off your illumination, but again, the slightest vibration will bring that right back on. So if you see something you get on your rifle, it's going to come back up. It's particularly handy for coyote hunters, varmint hunters.
Sure.
Right. Or after 2 hours of inactivity, completely motionless, then it'll go into a sleep mode, and from there you do have to roll it to the off position and then back on. Yeah. What's also really cool about the illumination is it's a constant rheostat, so it's not a step illumination with increasing intensities, but you can adjust that to the intensity that you need for that situation.
It's like a dimming switch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And we were, as far as I know, we were the first company to use that technology in this type of a rifle scope. 4-20 compact. It's our lightest weight option that we have at the moment. Let me talk about situation where this optic is particularly suited.
Sure.
Small or large frame gas guns,
Yep.
so AR-15s, AR-10 type platforms, or even nice custom hunting rifles. If somebody wants a fairly compact optic, high performance images and everything, performance of the scope, it might be like a once-in-a-lifetime rifle build that they want to put together, whatever the case may be. The lighter weight, more compact nature is ideally suited for that type of situation. Our most used scope most often is the 5-27. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit longer, 3 ounces, 2.5 ounces, heavier, not much that you'd really even notice, but it is probably a little bit more versatile for given situations. Yeah. So again, perfectly happy on, say, a large frame gas gun, but this is primarily a competition-oriented optic, military, law enforcement, PRS, NRL type, hunter competitions, whatever. Has a good magnification range from 5-27. This one does have the 56 millimeter objective as well as the 8-40. Turret options on these, the 527 and the 840, you can either get our original 15 mil per turn elevation turret as a locking turret. Those are only going to be available for certain reticles this year that impact 1X, 2X, and 3X. Or you can also get the 10 mil. 10 mil, since we announced that last year on the 527, the 10 mil turret by far has taken over 90% of our sales.
It's really nice.
It is. The clicks are just a little bit spacer, a little bit easier to see your click setting exactly, especially under time. So the 10 mil turret is locking or an LE. So lots of different options, and all of the reticles that we have available are available on the 10 mil elevation turret. This
one right here is a 15 mil turret. So when you're behind the gun, if you're trying to dial really quick, you got to kind of, am I on, 2.6 or 2.5, 2.4, whereas it's very visible on these 10 mil turrets exactly where you are. You got a little bit more space. It's just a little easier to see, less room for error. That's really what it is. With that additional space in between those, you can see it from the back of the gun while you're mounted, and you don't have to squint as much. So I really, really do like that. And yeah, just a nice feature, and I'm glad you guys thought of that.
So one of the things, so the reason that we're keeping the 15 mil per turn turrets, specifically on the 527 or the 8-40, given the use of the optic, you might not be under much of a time constraint where you need that, but you would rather have a larger travel of the elevation in one rotation. Right. So that 15 mil turret is then still very, very useful, having to use it quite so much. So think rimfire.
Sure.
22. I actually have my 8 to 40 15 mil turret on my 22,
Right.
my Voodoo. So it works excellent for that. Yep. So again, on the 527, 35 mils of elevation adjustment, 20 mils on the windage, parallax down to 25, same illumination system. We do have locking diopters on all of these. So that was one of our things from the outset, is we did want a locking diopter. I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people get irritated with when they use the flip-up caps, need to get that out of the way and then it's changed their diopter setting. That's annoying. So locking diopter was one of those things that we had.
I would say that for probably about 75% of most people's uses, the 5 to 27 is what you're going to want. It has plenty of magnification, has a lot of elevation travel, is going to be your general purpose, everything from military, law enforcement, hunting, competition. You really can't go wrong with that. So again, one of those questions I get a lot, whether it's email, phone call, is should I get the 4 to 20, 5 to 27, or the 8 to 40? You're going to be happy with that 5 to 27, but there are some use cases where the 4 to 20 or the 8 to 40 makes sense. And
yeah, so 8 to 40, this is a good size scope, but very high performance.
Right.
We have routinely got feedback. People think that the optical performance in the 8 to 40 is the finest they have ever seen, bar none, in any manufacturer. And these are coming from people with hands-on, lots of experience with every other scope that's out there. So we wanted to offer a product to people where they did have more magnification. That 40 is really, really handy, especially when you're trying to refine your zero as much as you can and be able to see that target really, really good. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a 100-yard zero. This might be a 500-yard where somebody wants to zero for an ELR type gun.
Yep,
right?
Or F-class or bench rest.
Exactly, yep. So again, this is just a little bit longer than the 5 to 27. It does have 56 millimeter objective, 36 millimeter main tube, same illumination functions, locking diopter. The only thing where this kind of starts to deviate is that you don't have quite as much elevation travel on this. We got 28 mils of elevation adjustment, but also particular to the 8 to 40 is we do have a closer parallax focus. That is crucial for your air guns.
Sure.
The air gun competitions are coming on really, really hard. And so we've got a lot of scopes that are out there on air rifles these days. Rimfire shooters like that closer focus. So I actually need that quite a bit in the wintertime where I shoot. When there's snow on the ground and it's 20 below zero, we actually have an indoor range where we're shooting paper targets at 50 foot. Yeah. So that my scope can focus down that close. Most other people have to find a different optic or they manage it some other way. So it's really nice to be able to have that. And of course we do have very finely balanced parallax adjustment out to infinity. And so this is also very well suited for ELR type application. Now we completely understand you might not be able to use 40 magnification throughout the entire year. There might be too much mirage. It just puts too much of a blur on the target. You need to turn that magnification down. But it doesn't mean that you have to use 40. It's available if you want it or you can use it or need it. Right? So that's really, really nice. And so this scope is almost a specialist given an application. If you need it, it is awesome.
Yeah, and let's talk about the challenges with that, because a lot of people look at optics and more magnification is better. And this is one of the things we cover in our courses, and just we answer a lot of these questions online and by phone and email and everything else. Folks, the more magnification that you have, it becomes a real optical challenge. Being able to manage mirage and things like that. Yep. You always want to use the least amount of magnification that you need. As you start to magnify an image, you're reducing the amount of light that is getting to your eye. As you increase magnification on all optics, the image starts to degrade. And what really makes a big difference in that is clarity, how those lenses are managing light inside. And man, this does as good a job as anything that I've seen, because you see some of the other scopes, you crank up that magnification, it gets worse and worse and worse.
It starts to get darker and darker.
Yep.
And everything. Yeah, our optical engineers have done a wonderful job on all of our scopes. Those guys are very talented, and we're very blessed to be we use in their designs.
You know, obviously these optics aren't cheap. And when you start comparing the cheaper optics or even other optics that are at the same price point, by the way, where images fall apart in those high mirage conditions. And that's where these really start to kind of break apart from the pack that I've seen through different testing, through different brands, comparison, you know, sitting right side by side, looking through a Zico versus many of the other brands out there, is in those high mirage conditions, this is not, you're not seeing the optical distortion with these, whereas those other ones, the images are falling apart. We're getting all kinds of optical distortion. And, you know, it makes a difference. And, you know, you got to figure out what makes sense to you depending on your type of shooting, the conditions that you're regularly shooting in. But you're getting what you pay for without a doubt with these. You just have to understand and be an informed buyer and understand what you're getting and why these cost what they do. That's really what it comes down to.
The really nice thing about our product line is we have something that's going to be suitable for most applications.
Yeah.
So coming on board, we're still working on getting these things into full production. We do have a 2 to 10 optic coming out. That thing's going to be killer.
That's awesome.
Yep, really looking forward to that. So yeah, working on expanding our product line, but we also don't want to try to grow too fast.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up is, you know, there's lots of, I like the fact that you guys are sticking with a smaller product line, constantly refining it, making sure that these are always perfect without trying to offer 50 different optics and doing things, quite frankly, half-ass.
Right.
I know even with the 2 to 10, we talked about the 2 to 10 at SHOT Show. I know you guys kind of had an expected release date. We were talking about that, but you guys have continued to do testing and you're making sure that that product is right before you release it.
Yes.
And, you know, I know with the customers out there, they're looking forward to a new product, but at the same time, you guys want to make sure it's right, not just to get a product out there and then, you know, end up having issues.
Right, yeah, our engineers they're very, very good and they're very thorough is the bigger thing. They're going through and testing that optic and making sure that it is built to the standards that we hold ourselves to and that the customers expect out of us. And so that's what we're going to deliver.
Well, let's talk about some of the optical accessories, your mounts. You know, speaking of the 4 to 20, I got another video coming out very soon on a small frame gas gun in 6 Max that I put the 4 to 20. Nick and I shot that this past weekend. That was a lot of fun. The perfect optic for that gun. Can't say enough about that. One of the challenges anytime that you're mounting optics on a gas gun is that you are going to need, on an AR, I'll say that. On an AR, you're gonna need a cantilever mount so you can offset that optic forward enough to where you're getting proper eye relief behind a gas gun. And you guys just came out with the cantilever mount. I got one of the first ones in, mounted that optic up, and I've been extremely happy. So let's talk a little bit about the development of your mounts, the cantilever mount, and the block mount as well.
Yeah, so the cantilever mount puts your scope at 1.5 inches high.
Okay.
Which is generally the preferred height setting. We are working on another version of that to be just a little bit taller.
Okay.
So we're still in development on that. But what's really nice about the cantilever mount is we do have a fairly wide front ring design, which then takes the additional accessories like the long diving board that goes on here.
Yep.
And this is the newer gen of these that has the indexing points with the screws on there, just kind of
ensure proper alignment with everything.
Proper alignment and make sure that the zero is maintained. Because people are using that not just for like a micro red dot sight, but they might be using it for a laser system or a rangefinder or something or another like that. So, yeah, our engineers kind of revisited that and we're redeveloped that particular style.
Yeah, so you have these index points on either side of this. An older one doesn't have that. I've used this. These have worked great. But what that's going to do is, again, it's going to eliminate any possibility of any little micro shift that we have there, both on the sides of the rings as well as the top. And that was a great inclusion and kind of a revamp.
Yep. And so you'll notice that with the cantilever design, the front ring is pushed forward a little bit, but the ring spacing is very similar to the other mounts that we have. And it does have that included little bubble level there that is foldable.
Yep.
Flip it out when you want it, tuck it away when you don't need it or you're in transports going someplace else. And you can reposition that on the other side of the mount, whether you're a left or a right-handed shooter. So it's just a few screws. It's not really that complicated to do that. Very happy with that mount. You might see another version or two of that coming out sometime in the near future.
I can tell you the height on this for the AR that I mounted it up with the 420 was perfect for what I was using it for. I think most of you are going to be happy with that. And of course, we have the original block mount. Have a lot of experience mounting optics on this now. Been pretty impressed with this mount, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so on the block mount, wider ring design, front and rear. So you can take either your long diving board or the shorter little Picatinny rail sections and put on either location. Again, there's multiple uses that you can do that. We also have them available on the 45s, left and right. So micro red dots, laser rangefinder systems, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Pick your poison. But this also has an integrated folding bubble level, repositionable to either side. And the other thing is, if you don't want that, you can take it all the way off and put it in the box and tuck it away. You don't have to have it on there.
No. And it's nice to have this as a backup. You know, a lot of us are using some of the electronic levels just because they're bright, nice and bright, and remind us, hey, make sure that gun's level. But at the same time, those fail. You know, so this is really nice to have as a backup, an analog that you know is going to work. And if you run out of batteries or your electronics go out, that's there. It doesn't get in the way. And I would keep it on there, but you know, you do you.
The biggest question we got actually on that mount was about this little bushing thing on there. What is that for? What's the point of it? So that was actually more for the guys that are doing 1,000-yard prone type stuff, where they have that mirage band that goes from here to the front of the barrel to kind of help cut off the mirage off the barrel, so you're not getting that through the scope. So that's the entire point of that. Again, if you don't want it on there, a couple screws, take it off, put it in the box. Another mount that we don't have here on the table with us today is the slimline mount. So that's actually the mount that I personally use the most. I don't need the micro red dots. I don't use weapon mounted rangefinders. So the slimline mount puts the scope at 1.18 inches high. So it's still good for the 840, the 527, especially the 4-20. It gives me the height that I want in my system. It uses a narrower ring design, but then I also have the alternate ring cap that has the folding bubble level integrated into that on there. So instead of the bubble level being on the base of the mount, I have it on the top ring cap. Just a different solution that we have.
Sure.
So we also have individual rings, a couple different heights on those. If you're using a action that has not one-piece Picatinny rail, but split Picatinny rails.
Sure.
You need individual rings for that system. So we have those available also.
One thing I do want to mention is I've mounted a lot of scopes in this mount for clients. And one thing that I really do love about this is how well these mount in here and just sit there and are perfectly formed to it. But you would expect that in a lot of other aftermarket mounts as well, and that doesn't happen. And one thing I do love about this is number one, it fits perfectly, and on top of that, when you do start to torque these down, it's very rare that I get that kind of ring pull where it's pulling to one side or another. You know, if you evenly torque these down, that optic stays there, doesn't move, just makes mounting simpler. And I think it just speaks to the overall fit, finish, and quality and precision that you guys put into every single product. So I love when, you know, we have clients that'll order a zero compromise and they order another brand mount, which, you know, there's plenty of options out there if you want a different brand for whatever reason. But I love when I see an order for this and this, and I'm mounting that optic, because I know it's going to be a much easier job, quite frankly. Less complicated.
So if we want to move into, we have a couple other accessories. So that's just our short Picatinny mount. So obviously, if you're using that, you're going to put other stuff on there other than a weapon-mounted rangefinder system. But again, like one of the micro red dots, or even if you had this on top of your front half here, you could put one of the rail-mounted bubble levels on that if you had a preferred bubble level that you use.
Or an electronic,
instead.
or electronic anti-cant device, or even a data card. Picatinny mounted data card.
Lots of uses for that. So pretty easy. And then of course the everybody calls it the diving board, the longer Picatinny rail section. There are multiple uses for that. So other things that we don't have on here is We do have a front ring cap that is suitable for the cantilever mount or the block mount that has the long diving board integrated as one machined in piece with that ring half, so you don't have separate screws that are holding that on board. It is a little bit taller than having the separate pieces. However, that's more to get that that system a little bit higher, so when you're actually behind the gun, it sits at a height that you can read the display without having to take your cheek completely off and see what's going on there. So,
all right, so let's talk a little bit about the reticle design that you guys have. I think they're very unique, and I found them, I love, personally right now, I love the Impact 3. I love how that works. I love the open dots on that. So let's talk, I know you've been very involved in that process of designing those reticles.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about those reticles.
Yeah, so starting this year, we have, from our own proprietary designs, the Impact 1X, the 2X, and the 3X. So as far as the reticle designs, they've kind of evolved over the last couple of years, but they generally start with me getting a direction to work on a new reticle design. And I'm already staying plugged in with the with what the industry is asking for, with customers kind of requesting in new stuff. But then it's a team effort. Then after that, I'll kind of get about 90% maybe, and then other members of our team kind of get in there and we start nitpicking really hard. Well, let's drop a version with this change. Let's drop another version with this other minor change, and maybe we integrate a couple of those all together. So there's lots of iterations that a reticle design actually goes through before we send it to the mechanical designer to get it put into his system. And that is a whole nother suite of engineering that he needs to do with all the different measurements. You cannot take a reticle that is designed for the 4-20 and just drop it in the 5-27. It's not going to be the same. All the subtension and everything are going to be completely off. So we make sure that all those numbers, specifications, and everything are right, and then we have another reticle manufacturer that specializes in doing those for us. And it takes a little bit of time, and it takes a significant investment for each reticle. So before we send it to the reticle manufacturer, we need to know within our team that it's going to be a winner option. And so there's multiple things to look at with reticle designs. The thickness of the lines, the subtensions of the lines. Are the subtensions visually balanced on there? Instead of, when you look through an optic, you want it to just be easy to understand, easy to decipher, and pick out the hold points that you want or need. They need to stand out quick and easy, but you also do not want them obtrusive, overly bold.
And obscuring.
Obscured.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those are some of the nitpicky things that we really go through and make sure that everything is perfectly balanced. The numbering height matters. The line thickness for everything.
Center dot size.
The center dot size. The spacing around the center dots. All of that we're really analyzing in depth within our team.
So, for instance, on the Impact 3X, you have those open circles that indicate your full subtensions, the full left or right, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is.
The whole mill.
Yep,
points.
the whole mill marks.
1 mil, 2 mils, 3 mils.
100%. So what I love about that is, number one, that's a quick reference. Number two, you're not looking at a large dot that obscures. I didn't appreciate how genius that was, so I used. I guess that's the point. And it's easy to see exactly, am I holding 2, 1, 3, whatever it is. You don't need a numbering system. And you don't have to look up at the top or the side or wherever else looking for, okay, am I at 2 or 3? It just makes it easy. It's a quick reference. It keeps that open. I can put that directly on the target if I'm holding a full mill. Geniusly intuitive, I'll put it that way.
Thank you. Yeah. So what's also really cool about those open circles, they're a 2/10 diameter. So of course the very center is your 1 mil point, but if you need 0.9, edge of the circle. You need 1.1, other edge of the circle. Very easy to use.
Yep.
The other dots that are throughout the tree portion of that, just small little dots, 2/10 spacing on those, so you have easy hold points. And also, as you look down that reticle, you have tiny little numbers down the vertical on there. So you have, if you're just tracking vertical, you have an easy way to keep track of how many mills that you've gone instead of just trying to keep track in your head how many circles that you've counted for your mills. And then we also have reference points at the edges, the left and right. Also, on that reticle, another thing that people haven't quite picked up a whole lot is your left and right holds. We have a 3R if you're holding 3 mils right, 3R and a 3L.
Yep.
So it's, there's a couple little features in there that are very useful. But if you're not holding and doing a whole lot with a tree, you probably don't need them. Doesn't really matter. They're small, but they're there if you need them. They're easy to find.
Yeah, and you know, for those of the guys that don't like a big Christmas tree reticle, you guys got options, cleaner options that would prefer a more simple reticle.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Impact 1X.
Yeah.
All right, so original design 2018, we just called it the Impact 1. It's MPCT.
Yep.
Just pronounce it Impact, like you hit a target, right? Because that's what they're designed to do, is hit a target. Okay. So you just have your vertical and horizontal crosshairs. The 1X, we have floating dots at every whole mill point, 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mils. And then around that dot, you have 1/10 gap all around there. So again, if you need a 0.9, 1.1, right? So that makes very easy to find those hold points. Use that dot for holding what you need, or the ends of the bars. We have 2/10 indications on the vertical. So if you need 2.6, you have a line right at 2.6. If you need 2.5, right in between the 0.4 and the 0.6. Easy enough to bracket that.
Yep.
What's changed on the 1X versus the 1 is mostly on the horizontal. We have the 2/10 indication tick marks all along the bottom edge of the horizontal, and 1/2 mil tick marks along the top edge. So if you're a guy that just needs 1/2 mil hold points, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, those are all along your top edge. Very easy to find. It doesn't get lost in a cluster of other tick marks up, down, left, right, all over the place. Or if you want to be a little bit more precise with your wind call, you're shooting small targets like we were this weekend.
Yeah.
A 1/10 change matters on a lot of those targets. You know exactly where you're at on those for your wind holds. So that design aspect with the 2/10 on the bottom edges and your 1/2 mil tick marks are all along in the 2X, as well as on of course the 3X. The 2X is take the 1X and then add tree portion to it, where you have solid bars on your horizontals, and then again floating dots at all the whole mill points throughout your tree. We try to have a good array of options for the customers. In fact, a lot of the top PRS guys that are running our scope right now are using the 8-40 with the Impact 1X right now. The reticles in the 8-40 are actually a touch slimmer than in the 420 and the 527.
Okay.
Had to do that just because of increased magnification.
Yeah.
People just want it just a little bit thinner due to that increased magnification. That having that a little bit smaller dot size is really, really helpful shooting tiny targets at distance.
And still not obscuring the target when you blow that thing up all the way to 40X.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Nick, what do you guys got coming out as far as any new products that are coming or products on the horizon?
Yeah. So the 2-10 announced out at SHOT Show this year. Showed it to several key people, friends, partners in the industry. That was one of the very first like prototype type scopes.
And this is kind of set up as a low power variable optic.
Yeah, it's very LPVO-ish
Yeah.
type of scope, but it is a 2-10, so it's still our 5x zoom ratio, but the 2 still gives you adequate low-end magnification. One of the very first questions that we got from people, why not a 1?
Which is the first thing I asked you.
We would like a 1. Yes, perfectly understand. There's a whole nother can of worms going from a 5x zoom to a 10x zoom. There's a lot more issues optically.
Yeah.
And also we understand that a lot of people that are using that and they might want that 1, they're still running a micro red dot or something on their optic anyway. It's still much faster than looking through a tube.
Sure.
So we wanted this scope to fill a few different roles, not just on a small frame entry style rifle.
Sure.
This might also go on somebody's hunting rifle.
Sure.
It might be somebody in the southeast part of the United States. Primarily they're hunting maybe in wooded areas up in a tree stand waiting for a deer to come out. They want something more than a 1 power because they might also be overlooking a farm field where they have 200, 300, 400 yard
Pigs,
shot,
varmints too.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a 2-10 felt like a really good balance with that. But then the same person might also book a hunt to Montana or Alaska or someplace where there's wide open spaces, they have capability of longer range shot, but a 10 power scope would probably be just fine for that situation. So their rifle then is suited for a whole different set of parameters. But what is also significant in our 2-10 is it also has a parallax.
Oh, nice.
So it's not just LPVO and all you have is elevation windage, but you do have parallax adjustment on that scope.
Which
as
is something, I can't think of any low power variable optic that has a parallax. Maybe there's one out there, but I can't think of any that do.
Yep. Yep. So again, we're looking at every single aspect and not just the magnification, trying to have another LPVO on the market. We wanted this to be well suited for a range of options, but it's obviously not a do-it-all scope. And I don't think there is any scope that is a do-it-all, right? There are scopes that are very useful in multitudes of situations.
Sure.
And this is going to fill some of those.
And what's going to be the objective lens? That's a 36 millimeter tube as well, and then the objective lens.
I believe it's a 30 millimeter objective lens. Yeah. So yeah, we stuck with our 36 millimeter main tube because we have all these options already with our mounts and ring designs and stuff. So no sense in going something completely different and then just trying to manufacture new mounting systems. So, yeah, pretty easy. And the scope is. It's on the way. Again, our engineers are being very thorough and exhaustive with the testing that they're doing on it and making sure that it's going to live up to our quality standards that our customers expect out of us.
Awesome. Another question I hear a lot about is your Hunter optic. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so our as I mentioned before, we're a multinational company. We have owners in the United States. We have the headquarters and owners in Austria. Well, our Austrian partners work together with some of their high-end hunters that they have close partnerships with, some of the military units, et cetera. But primarily their hunting needs are a little bit different than what the hunting needs of the United States people are and what they expect. So they designed an optic that is very, very well suited for the type of hunting that is predominant in the European market. So the 1.7 to 12 optic is a hunting style scope, outstanding optic, very, very nice, but is primarily designed for the European hunting market specifically.
And currently is not available here in the U.S.
Currently not available in the United States. That's correct. Yeah. On the way, we are still working on an optic for the United States market, but we have other things going on that took precedence, so that has been delayed a little bit.
Sure.
We are actively working on it still. In fact, I was looking at some designs just last week, giving a little bit of feedback, doing the back and forth for what do we need, and the engineers are wonderful to work with, taking our requests. Working with us as best we can, giving us feedback. Well, that's not quite possible, but we can do this. Looking at all the different options. And when that is ready, I'm very excited.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Awesome. Well, folks, I hope that was helpful. I hope that was informative. Again, anytime that we are getting behind a product, we want to make sure that we educate the client, the customer, our viewers on not only the products that we're carrying, the people behind the company, and so that you know why we chose to carry whatever product that we're carrying and the brands that we get behind. So we're really proud to work with Zico. We're really proud to be a dealer. So if you're looking for a zero compromise optics, make sure you go to ParamountTactical.com. If you have questions about zero compromise optics, feel free to give Zero Compromise a call or give us a call. We'll do our best to answer any questions. And if
phone number's right up there.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Right there, right there. Call that number, ask questions, but when you go to buy, go to ParamountTactical.com. Well, Nick, I really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you for coming on, answering questions. Yes. And, while guns and gear are great, what we're really about is training. So go to ParamountTactical.com. Go check out our upcoming training schedule. We'd love to have you out. We'd love to meet you in person, tactical carbine, medical courses, handgun courses, you name it. And if you're serious about learning long range the right way, go check out our XP Long Range Academy courses that we're doing in conjunction with Ray Helms from the X-Ring. And for all your gear needs, go to ParamountTactical.com. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.